everyone. Okay, I just had a senior moment. I am a senior. I'm an old guy. I'm over 60, 61, going on 62. I'm old. So I went to the dentist. This is my senior moment. Went to the dentist. I prepared for it last night and this morning, and I forwarded the appointment message to my wife. But when I got to the dentist's office, the receptionist said, "That's funny. I don't have you scheduled for today." And I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh." She said, "Are you okay? I'm worried about you." I said, "No, I had a senior moment." That's what we call a senior moment, right? I misplaced something. You go into a room to get something. When you get into the room, you forget what you went into the room for. And I thought that was funny, and I wanted to share it. However, the title of this live stream is Sourdough Intervention. So when I got to the office and I spoke with one of the dental assistants, I told her that I'm on a sourdough journey. And she's like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to make sourdough." And she said, "I heard it's really hard." And it can be extremely difficult because sourdough is its own beast. You use all the five senses. It's chemistry. It's physics. It's funny. But the bread itself, when you make it, is amazing because it only consists of flour. You want to use bread flour, high quality bread flour, water, and that's another thing. You want to use good water because most of our water supply in the cities we live in isn't very good. And then you use salt, right? And then you want to use a good quality salt. So everything that you use to make it, you want to use good quality. But sourdough bread is basically flour, water, and salt. And when you make your bread, you need what is called a starter, right? And your starter is just flour and water. And you mix it and feed it. When you mix the flour and water, you get bacteria from your environment, the home that you're living in, or apartment, or wherever you are. Okay? So you mix that, it begins to grow and rise or ferment. When it does that, it gets bubbly, right? So when you make your bread, you need a starter. You can make your own starter, or you can buy a starter. And when you talk to people about it, they'll ask you, "Oh, do you have a starter? Do you need a starter?" So there's all kinds of information out there about bread. And since I've been on my sourdough journey, I have really, truly, honestly been obsessed with sourdough bread. Watching videos night and day. It's like the first thing I do when I get up in the morning, I like to pray and read scripture or listen to some music. But afterwards, I go right into sourdough and I start watching videos from different content creators because I subscribe to about 5 or 6 content creators. My sister had given me a starter. That's how I got started because she makes the bread. And apparently, sourdough bread has become the rave during COVID because people were restricted in what they can do and where they can go as a result, had to wear masks. So back to the title, Sourdough Intervention. When I was leaving my dentist's office this morning, the hygienist, who is also being a receptionist, multitasking as a receptionist, she said, "Your oldest daughter, when I spoke to her, she's so cute. It's so nice to talk to her. But she was telling me about you and your sourdough journey and how you're trying to get your bread correct." I'm like, because for me, on my journey, it's basically I don't know how to describe it. There is a word in the description. But it's a learning experience and a learning curve. I didn't have anybody physically teaching me who knew how to make sourdough bread and who had a starter, because my sister lives out of state. She lives in another state, Idaho. So it's not like I'm going to drive to Idaho and have her help me make sourdough bread and teach me. And as a matter of fact, I did. I went to Idaho last month. It might have been in December or November. And I was hoping she would teach me how to make sourdough bread, because she had given me a starter. And when I had the starter, for some reason I couldn't get my bread correct. The reason why I wasn't getting it correct is because the starter wasn't at its peak, and when I bulk fermented the bread dough, bulk fermentation is when you basically wait for it to rise a certain amount before you begin to pre-shape it. Then you let it cold ferment or ferment back on the counter again and bake it. There's a lot of rules and guidelines that you are going to be exposed to when you first begin to make sourdough bread. And I was just like experimenting. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to do it. So that is one of the reasons why I began to study so much. So back to the dentist's office, right? My hygienist is telling me, yeah, your daughter was so great to talk to, but she was telling me about you and sourdough, and she said you were obsessed with it. And so as she was saying this to me, I said, oh, so basically was this a sourdough intervention? Because my wife told me a couple weeks ago, I think you need to stop making sourdough bread, because when you make sourdough bread and you follow the rules, which I was doing everything. I had to feed the starter. When you feed your starter, you have to wait for it to rise, and that can take anywhere from 4 to 8 or 12 hours depending on the temperature. The colder the temperature, the longer it takes for your dough to rise. And I don't have all of the fancy tools like a proof box, right? Proof box is a hermetically sealed box that will maintain a constant temperature and humidity. So you put your starter in there, right, or your dough, and it'll rise. It's chemistry, right? You can take the temperature of your starter or of your dough, and based on that temperature, you can follow a schedule or a guideline that will tell you how long it's going to take for your dough or your starter to ferment. Well, I didn't have all those things. So I was experimenting in my kitchen. Sometimes it would be hotter, sometimes it would be colder. So that changed the amount of time. And as a result, you're captive to your starter and to your bread. Once you get your starter right and you start making your bread, then you are captive to the bread, because you have to mix the dough with the starter, then you wait. Normally the times are 30 minutes to an hour. After that, you begin stretching and folding your bread, which builds the gluten in the bread and makes it stretchier, because you're going to have gas in that dough, right? You have bubbles, right? You get big old giant bubbles in it. And so my daughter was telling the hygienist, yeah, and she was laughing about it, telling me. That's when I said, oh, I'm going to make a video about sourdough intervention. So one of my sisters, I have 6 older sisters. I get to see them every now and then. I got to see all 5 of them last year, and I saw 3 of them already. Or no, 2, right? And when I